Right. Very interesting musical personal journey through the genres. Um, Want to start?
One, Steve.
Steve, you're up
Oh,
next.
you want me to start? Okay.
Yeah.
This was a question, I sent you an email. I said, I'm kind of getting the same answers for 2 and 3. And then you explained it. It probably would have worked out better if I was able to join you guys the other day for the setting up of this. But once you explained the way you were kind of doing it, it made sense to me. So I'm going to say my musical journey. Well, obviously, growing up in the 60s, okay, I'm at that point, you know, I'm just listening to AM radio because that's all there is. And it's nothing but top 40. You're not getting any deep cuts or underground stuff. I mean, it was purely commercial radio. And the music that I grew up, I still listen to this music a lot. And the 60s, the great thing about those songs, those pop tunes, those infectious pop tunes, and they had to be because they were only allowing them to be between 2 and 3 minutes. They weren't giving them extended plays. So it had to grab you right away. It had to have a hook. And so, I mean, those kind of bands like Herman's Hermits,
Yeah.
the Hollies, the Dave Clark Five, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and then Tommy James and the Shondells. I mean, all of these are just chock full of hits, ones that get played on the radio forever. And depending on what kind of music channel you listen to now, you'll hear them there. So I've always loved, what I always refer to as an infectious pop tune. So that type of music. From there, then I would say, I had, we're going to say, some dalliances. I listened to a little bit of new wave music, but since I first heard Black Sabbath, I've always liked a lot of hard rock, heavy metal music. And I did like some prog growing up. I mean, my first prog album I ever bought was Fragile by Yes. But I really did not get deep into prog probably until about 2000. And I mean, I would listen to it now and then, but I mean, now it's probably the genre that I listen to the most. And I like discovering the bands that have come from like 2000 on, or at least the albums that have come from that point in time, 2000 on. So I listen to a lot of this. I don't know if you ever heard of them, No Sound. The album is called Light Dark. It's not a great band name, but they're a progressive rock band out of Italy. Riverside.
Poland, yeah.
Out of myself. It's their debut. This is first of a trilogy, which is a great trilogy. They're out of Poland. The Pineapple Thief, their newest album, it leads to this. And everything is going to bring it back to Steven Wilson. So And Cannot Erase, I think his best solo album. And Airbag from Norway, A Day at the Beach. In fact, they have a new album coming out in June, I believe. So that's kind of what my life has evolved to as far as my music listening taste. I mean, I still listen to a lot of the hard rock, but prog rock has really kind of consumed me over the last 20, 25 years. So there you go.
Yeah. Should I jump in? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, musical journey. Music has always been very important in my life. So I was born in 1986, as I said. So I was probably 11 or 12 years old in the mid 90s. But at that time, something very weird happened. I wasn't listening the same music as my friends, as my schoolmates. Don't know why. My parents always had this ideal. Souvenir, nostalgic, maybe a bit related to their when they were young. So my father was born in 55, my mother in 61, so they bought a lot of music in the mid 70s, early 80s, and we had a lot of vinyl at home. And so Queen was my very first love in 95, when this Made in Heaven, this post death, Freddie Mercury passed away in
Yeah.
98, 91. So Made in Heaven, they made 91, or they made Made in Heaven, released in 95. And this was a shock. So I was listening to Queen like every day, and I fell in love with that band. I was 9 or 10 years old. And after that, the Beatles anthology came out on VHS or Betamax or a cassette prior DVD, and they aired on the French TV all the series. And I think I've asked my father, "Hey, what is the best band ever?" Or something. I was 10 years old, and he said the Beatles, and I instantly once again fell in love with that band, and wanted to buy every record. I was taking some chorus piano lessons, and I hate that, really hate that. And we had all this exam at the end of the year, and I failed every time. And when I was 12 years old, I passed the exam. So my mother said, "Now you can buy a CD," and I bought that one. This is the CD I bought in 1998. This is the very first CD I bought when I need a lot of money. And the Beatles have been important. I was a bit outcast, mocked by my schoolmates. Difficult time. And John Lennon, listened to his stories. Imagine album. It has helped me as a young man in the 90s, in a small village in France, where everyone were listening to boys band or rap or dance music. I was really against. And no, I listened to the Beatles. So here we are. And after, I think, 20 years, as a symbol, first trip I took to the Scotland, I found an OG copy of that one. So still in the Beatles, still love that band. Of course, now I've discovered a lot of other bands. When I was 13 years old, my father bought a compilation of this group. His father, so my uncle, was very into Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And the first time I listened to Child in Time, I was really shocked. And this was the music I was into when 13 years old. This was in 1999. So we had a CD back then. Started to have some money from when you had a birthday or something. So I was buying not a lot of CDs, because it was freaking expensive to my budget. But I had goal to buy all the Beatles album. It took me 3 years to buy all the albums on CD. And I was spending a lot of time in music store. My father used to work in Switzerland. We were very close to the border with Germany and Switzerland. So they were a little bit cheaper in Germany. So I spent a huge amount of time trying CDs, listening to the album, doing a list, waiting for my next birthday that I get 20 franc or euro, whatever, and to buy albums. And really obsessed with that period of 60s, of 70s, the classic rock, which I couldn't call the classic rock by then, but really, really obsessed. And by the 80s as well, the early 80s new wave stuff. And it took me years to go over that, to be more, let's say, how can I say that, to have more interest about something different, something from my generation. Maybe when I was 16, I had started to have a better life, first girlfriend, more friends at school, and then I say, okay, I will try your shit. But before that, really focus on the music of my father, the music of my parents, so to say. Yep. How about you, Mr. Ordi?
Well, the first record I bought was a 7-inch single, Paper Plane by Status Quo. And then I quickly got into buying some albums, but I've picked 2 or 3 of them here. I bought this album, which is Fire Brigade by The Move. which is Everybody Knows the Move, Roy Wood, 60s kind of psychedelic pop. Kind of, I'm sure you've got this one as well, Steve.
I do not have that one. I've got a couple Move albums,
yeah.
but I do not have that one.
Yeah. Anyway, it's brilliant. And I became a big fan of Roy Wood, maybe more of that a little bit later. Then I bought Bartley James Harvest, Early Morning Onwards, which is a compilation. And anybody who knows Bartley James Harvest, or if you don't know, they are kind of a progressive rock band. They're heavily influenced by the Beatles, kind of a folky vibe, but with Mellotron. And they, beautiful melodies. They became a bit more harder edged later on, where the guitar was pushed out front as opposed to the Mellotron and the soft vocals. But really, really good, really good. Then I bought this one. Now, have you guys got that one?
I have that.
Yeah, well, I was a big fan of Deep Purple, but couldn't afford to buy the original album. So this one was about £1 or 50 pence or something like that. And I think you guys might know about the history of this one. I've kind of forgotten, but I think it's done by session musicians, obviously doing cover versions. And I think they were members of Thin Lizzy.
It is Thin Lizzy, yeah, because the guy, he approached them and he asked them, I want you to record an album of Deep Purple tunes. And he had money. He footed the bill for the recording studio. And yeah, it's Thin Lizzy doing Deep Purple covers. There are like 2 other songs on there.
Yeah.
The one guy does, I forget what his connection is, but
Palamatoon maybe, or Fireball, Dan, Palamatoon, Karina, Black Knight, Speed King, Strange Kind of Woman, Rising Sun, and Hush.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was good. And then there's a pattern here because all of these are budget releases because I couldn't afford full price albums. And then, of course, I got that one, which most of you guys in the vinyl community probably got, to be honest, which is, at the time you just think, well, this is, Dark Side of the Moon was either about to come out or it was out. And, of course, this was like the early stuff. And anybody who was kind of a newcomer to Pink Floyd in those years was probably a bit sniffy about this album, thinking, well, this is just the old stuff. It doesn't really matter. It's all about Dark Side of the Moon or metal, echoes and all that sort of business. Yet as the years pass, this is a phenomenal compilation. It's absolutely superb. And that early stuff, you go back to it. So that's
the US, or at least it was probably the North American release. It had a different cover.
So I then what happened is I got into I was hoovering up all these compilations or these cheap ones. I started to get into my first full price albums. I was lent albums by a school friend, one of which is over your shoulder, Steve, which I still don't have on vinyl, which is the Red Grand Funk album. Just got it on CD. I'd love to have that on vinyl, but I haven't got around to finding a decent copy yet. And then I got into, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, 2 out of 3 and bad, I guess. I got into classical music, which was really interesting. So I was kind of really lucky because I grew up and I was acquiring vinyl records before I was long enough in the prog era and the hard rock era, the kind of the blues rock era, that when punk came along, I was living it real time. So I got caught up in the punk wave. And so, most of the major punk bands that, have legendary status these days. And then new wave. And then I started to dabble in jazz. And then by the time the 90s came around, I went all in on Americana. There was a load of stuff being released. And then I suppose in the last 10 years, I acquired more and more movie soundtrack stuff that's interesting to me. But all of that journey, I've not dropped anything. So it's just accumulating more and more interest in more and more musical genres. So I kind of can, depending on my mood, I can pick anything from, Deep Purple album, Zeppelin album, to some, piano music, whatever. So big mixture.
Yeah.
Oh, I did forget to mention too, FVA made me think of it when you said you were playing piano. When I was like 15, I started playing bass guitar. My best friend, he was a guitar player. He had a band. Didn't like the bass player he had. One time he just asked me, he says, "You ever think about playing?" He says, "I'll teach you." So went out and bought a bass guitar and then ended up playing in the band until 78 when I went in the Air Force.
Yeah. And I think 16 years old was for me a little bit turning point. As I said, I started to have more friends or more confidence in myself. And I was at high school in a very small city, Mulhouse, and I was discovering a lot of different stuff back then. I met my best friend. He was originally from Tunisia, so I was more in contact with Turkish music, with hip hop, and still one of my favorite album by that time. This is a French hip hop. You probably never heard of that. You were
Yeah.
part of this very successful hip French rap band called I Am, and this is his solo album released in 1998. And yeah, the topic addressed. So yeah, but it's in French, so it's pretty hard when if you not don't listen to don't speak the language. And I bought that copy, yeah, when I was 16, because I had a lot of friends at school. They were originally from Algeria, Morocco, so the northern part of Africa. And yeah, I was a little bit interested of, hey, what is that rap music, hip hop music? Because obviously they were these people from this place. They were crazy about that. And in the same year, I bought something very different. Yeah, yeah. Iron Maiden. I have a cousin. He's 12 years older than me. So he was talking about when he was young, Metallica, all this band, Iron Maiden. This is the very not that copy. I bought that on CD, but just for the record, this is the very first Iron Maiden album I bought, and I listened to that every day. The summer when I was 16, my parents still remember, and yeah, didn't buy all the Iron Maiden album, but this was part of my youth, so to say. And after that, I kind of dropped with buying albums because Spotify, not Spotify, but Napster, Emule, and all that craziness. So was still buying a lot of music and listening to a lot of music, downloading is well not always legal, and or buying CDs sometimes in Germany. And I remember 2012. I was listening to a lot of music on YouTube, and I was surprised to see people commenting, young people commenting. You had this Deep Purple live concert, and you had people commenting. I was 24. People they had maybe 12 or 11. They were saying, "Hey, I listen to that music. I get mocked by my friends," and people they were very supportive. And I thought, oh, I wish I had this. But 10 years, I was born maybe 10 years too late. And yeah, I was consuming a lot of music on YouTube, having playlists, and still enjoying it for this one. This is a band I discovered maybe 2018 to 2017. This band and the band Mountain I had no idea about. I took a trip in Canada. The first back in the day, I was still living in France, and since I have family in Niagara, and they had this amazing classic rock radio station, it was all new to me as a European guy, and they were playing "I'm Your Captain," and I said, "Oh, what is that band?" And I made some research, and yeah, this it took me 2 years to get a hold of that one, the Red album, the double live album. We're an American band. Uh, we're an American band. I have a fun story to share. Um, First time I went to the US on holidays, we had this trip with my wife in DC, Washington. And after doing the museum, we started sitting in a bar, the typical bar with dozens of screens showing the hockey game. And we are an American band, played loudly in the room, and we are waiting for our burgers. And sitting next to our table, a couple, maybe 50, 40 years old, and that guy is, what is that band? And when I go to the bathroom, I said it's Grand Funk Railroad. So when he left the place, give me a thumbs up. I think the only day I felt American.
Completely different band at that point. I mean, from the Red
Yeah.
album to
Yeah.
We're an American Band. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they
but
had.
both very good albums. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
Steve made a great video about Grand Funk Railroad. Is
Oh, thank you.
yeah, you made that
Yeah,
5 years.
actually, that's autographed by Mark Farner.
Yeah,
Nice one.
I saw
Yeah.
him solo in '87, and he was playing a small bar. 300-400 people were there, you know.
Goodness me.
And yeah, it's heartbreaking to see
Yeah.
a guy you saw play in front of 20,000 people who is now playing in front of 300 people in Elgin, Illinois, at a place called the Blue Moon Ballroom. Yeah, but I brought the cover with me, and I went back around and I asked, would Mark sign this? And they're like, sure, come on in. So
Yeah.
walked back there and he signed it for me.
I hope he was doing it for fun and not for money.
Well, I don't know if you ever followed any of the Grand Funk soap opera.
No.
There's man, you can find out. There's a documentary on YouTube. You can find. They went through a lot of stuff. I don't think any of them are wealthy.
No.
So, you know,
yeah,
kind
and
of
yeah.
sad.
If you don't know about Steve's channels, he has this amazing series called 5 Years in the Life of an Artist. So this is really cool. It doesn't last 20, 30 minutes long. It's really sharp, gets to the point,
Yeah.
and usually you are picking really essential area of an artist, even though
Yeah, it's what
pretty-
I think is
Yeah.
their best 5-year run.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's so. And after that, I made my journey. I say 80s new wave. Find also interesting all the bands that have been inspired by Kraftwerk, and maybe other band like Psychedelic Furs, Echo and the Bunnymen. They have been inspired by Joy Division work, but I like them both. This has been very important to me as well. Orchestral Maneuver in the Dark.
MD. Wow.
OMD, yeah. This is a Japanese press. I also have the UK press, and it's really amazing. During the COVID, Niam, the prog nerd, her channel started to be very, very huge, and she made a video with her father, very interesting, very touchy, and he talked about one album, the Grateful Dead, American Beauty. That's the first album I bought over here because of that video. And he was mentioning that one. It was pretty hard, COVID time, and he said organization, and that song, Promised. It's really great. And we often talk about that band with some French YouTuber, Assistundi. He's in the comment, or Big Star, and we all agree. And
if I can just interject before we move on, I saw OMD supporting Gary Newman and Tubeway Army when they came on stage with a tape recorder, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and they were the support band. Great, it was great night.
Yeah, and then internet gave me the chance to discover more obscure stuff. So this is a shout out for Mike. This is a band from Boston. This is the ultimate. I'm still looking for the other one, Behold and See. This is the Akama Issues, and really like this psych bands. What I forgot to mention, I was really crazy about this guy when I was probably 15, 16 years old as well, because of that movie Forrest Gump. When they were walking, in the jungle, there is this scene, and you hear that all over the watchtower that has been overused, and didn't know what it was, and finally find out, wow, that's Jimi Hendrix. So Jimi Hendrix has been important to me as well. This band, this album, maybe a little bit later, when I was maybe 20. Judas Priest, This is their second album. It's not the Judas Priest Breaking the Law. It's almost proggy, I would say. I discovered the gray old whistle tests.
Yep.
Yeah, there are some great footage on YouTube, and it blew my mind when I discovered that.
Whispering
And
Bob Harris.
yeah,
Yeah, Whispering Bob.
Yeah.
and this one I was looking for years.
Yeah.
Gene Clark, I'm a very big fan of him. The all everything he made when he left the Birds, with the Gosling brothers, with Doug Diller, the banjo player.
Mm.
This is for me the how I could imagine when I was the dream to move to North America, when I was in Europe, when I was bad with COVID, and I was listening to this kind of music, and I couldn't imagine myself driving. You know, it's kind of stupid now because now I'm living here, and life is good everywhere. But yeah, and another important band I discovered prior going to vinyl. This one definitely. This is a very important album to me. Disraeli Gears. They recorded that one in New York. Cream, you all know Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce at their best. Very psyche, very bluesy, and
You like your power trios: Grand Funk, Jimi Hendrix, Cream,
Rush, Blue Cheer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I,
yeah,
oh, you,
yeah,
go on.
yeah, and I listened to this amazing radio station in Belgium. The guy, the drummer of the prog band Machiavel, Marquisai, he created a radio station, and he has this amazing show. I often talk about that guy, and I could meet him once. This is back in the days when he was still having his radio. He's signing all the album, and he's very interesting. He was combining classic rock, amazing story, amazing, and very knowledgeable. And he's the one who gave me the guts to go into prog rock. 2018, 2019. Yeah, I'm not listening to progress forever. I knew about the prog genre. I knew about Peter Gabriel left Genesis. I knew about that stuff, but I never really got into that one. And the very first album, I remember I say, okay, now I'm giving me my chance to go into prog rock. I listened to that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Come on,
And
Steve.
yeah,
Sorry, I've got it, but I don't have it handy. It's
no,
not what I was. It's not
no,
what I was showing today.
no problem. And first prog album I listened to um, blew my mind as well.
Yeah.
I think I listened to the first song, and then I stopped. It was too much to me, too much. And then I tried the next day, and you say that in your video, it has to grow on your. It wasn't music like the Beatles. The Beatles, they didn't have recorded tape machines, so they had to remember the melody on the next day. And if they remember, okay, it's good enough. We can record that. But that time it was different. And your video you made about prog rock with your amazing. It's yeah, it's a long hair. It's a standard video. How music, how they are classically trained. They have it's a great video, and yeah, this is so important. It's not my favorite album, but it's so important. It's the first time I say, okay, now I'm old enough to listen to prog. I often compare prog like a glass of brandy and a cigar. It's not something you enjoy when you're 35. When you're 21, when I was 21, I was buying cheap vodka and and going to disco, and you know, and yeah. So this is my getaway to the prog genre.
I'll
This
tell you
one.
what's really remarkable about that album, and that is it's fully realized, it's crafted to the almost infinite detail. It's like everything they'd done up to that point, they didn't rush it. I mean, they were on a tour album. They were producing an album a year. That was the way it was back in the 70s. But when you consider how young those guys were, that is a real work of art. It's not something that was kind of improvised. It's not something that was kind of thrown together to get something to hit a release date. It stood the test of time because it's so beautifully crafted.
Yeah, and it sounds a bit modern. It sounds a bit modern
timeless.
because they incorporated this RAP pro soloist. The producer, he grasped the art of the band. So and Steve Hackett was experimenting all sort of stuff with his guitar, and
Mm.
it's and it's important. I took a trip 6 months ago in the UK, and it might sound stupid, but I found the very first press of Nursery Crime with the Pink Scroll label,
Wow, yeah.
and I was sleeping in Exeter, in the not far from High
The
Stevie.
Southwest.
Yeah, and in this very charming city with Victorian house, and I have my copy of that, and I'm walking down the streets, and I'm in the UK, and it might sound stupid, but sorry, it's I was at Cloud Nine reading, and finding a copy of that one, and yeah, so
Stevie, I have not shown my spreadsheet just to put you at ease.
yeah, hi Stevie, yeah.
Yeah. So this was my breakthrough or gateway album as well into the prog genre as well. Up to that point, there was a couple of other albums that, other than the Grand Funk one, that, as I say, I borrowed. But this was a really important album to me as well. And this comes back to The Move and Roy Wood. After he left the Electric Light Orchestra, he produced this solo album. And it's a really eclectic mix of all sorts of musical styles, but it's fabulous, absolutely gorgeous. So that was, alongside Selling them by the Pound, this was a full price album, which I wasn't buying too many of at that particular point. And just one more that was important in those early days, and that's Tangerine Dream.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Phaedra. Absolutely amazing album. It's still my go-to Tangerine Dream album after all these years. Although it's actually not the best one. I think the best one is Ricochet. So if you're familiar with the catalogue, the live album Ricochet that came, I think, 2 albums downstream from this one, was absolutely superb. But yeah, what a fantastic band back in the day. Of course, they tarnished their reputation by producing movie soundtracks every 5 minutes all the way through the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah, the one I do like is the soundtrack to Thief with James Caan.
yep,
Familiar with that one?
yep.
I've got it, but I'm not really familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying a quick shout out to Michael Noland. He's been also very supportive. He has his show with Royce sometimes. Royce in the house, very great guy. Said very kind words in his channel. So thank you. If you don't know about Michael Noland, he does amazing street podcast live. So check it out.
Romy, is anyone asking any questions yet?
Do you have questions, guys? Not about the weather, please. It's not because we have someone from the Britain. Sorry.
MGK just wanted to know if I was seeing Steve Hackett in concert soon. He was here like 2 weeks ago. I ate the ticket because of my back, so I didn't go to the show.
Okay, I think we cover. Or maybe Steve, do you have something to add? Or
no, I'm good on that one. We can do the next time.
We can do next. Perfect. Next one would be